In just 6 weeks, you could be harvesting your very own organic cucumbers from your container garden, and I'm going to show you how right now. Hello everyone, this is Dylan from the TheTriniGardener channel, and I'm really glad that you made it for this video because I'm going to be showing you how to grow your own cucumbers in containers at home, 100% organic, easy, and of course affordable. Cucumbers are an amazing vegetable and they are a really good source of potassium. They're a really good source even of water, and it's something that you're going to be really proud of yourself once you can go into your garden and harvest your own homegrown cucumbers. So we're going to begin with containers. I'm going to be using for my cucumber a construction bucket. This is around a 2.5 to 3 gallon bucket, and I generally find cucumbers like a nice wide space for their roots to spread out. I find that they generally like to go wide rather than just go deep. Okay, so very important that the containers be a little bit wider. All right, you don't want to have a situation where it's a really narrow opening and then this much soil. It's not going to work as well. You want to make sure that your container has drainage holes. This particular container has 5 half-inch drainage holes that I use a drill with a half-inch bit for. If you don't have a drill, you can just simply use a knife that's heated, all right, and you can make your holes using that. If not, just a hammer with a nail, right, a nice thick nail, can punch in and make some holes. It doesn't have to be pretty, it just needs to make sure that the water at the bottom of your container doesn't settle when you water your plants. You need to make sure that that water can flow through your soil and then eventually go and drain out at the bottom. And that's going to make sure that the water doesn't settle and cause root rot, which is a really big problem that can affect cucumbers. We're going to be starting our cucumber plants from seedlings. All right, I got these $1 per plant. Now, something that can happen sometimes is you buy a plug, right? It's $1, but you have 2 plants coming from it. So you have 2 options. You actually have 3 options. Either you can pinch off one of these, which is what I'm going to do. Right? You can just pinch off one of the plants, right? If not, you can actually have both of them. You can plant both of them, but eventually, so they're both going to grow, but eventually one will literally suck the life out of the other plant. All right? So it's not something, so it probably doesn't make sense planting both of them at the same time. Another thing that you can do is there is a process where you can actually wash out the roots to the extent that you can actually separate them, right? And you'll get two plants. That can be a bit risky, especially as a beginner, simply because the plants themselves don't always bounce back once you wash out all of the soil from their plug, which is fine, you know. It's just $1 for the seedling, so might as well just get 1 plant as is normally the case, which is what I got when I got this seedling just over here. Okay, so here's my soil. Remember, a good soil, it's going to be able to drain out moisture as necessary while retaining a good level of moisture so that you don't have to keep on watering very often. Remember, a soil that can basically clump together like this, right, but at the same time fall apart, is generally a good indicator of soil that will provide the right level of water retention with water drainage. Okay, all right, so to plant our cucumber now, we're just going to just slightly loosen up the roots here, right? Not very much. This will just help the roots to come out of that circle that they've been in, that root bound nature, and ready to pierce into all of the soil that is in this container here, right? So I'm just going to put it down. You don't want to, this is not tomatoes, so you don't want to actually plant your cucumbers too deep. That can actually encourage root rot as well. So if you can see, I'm just covering the cucumber up until the bulb of roots, just as I got it there. All right, I'm just going to press it down, right? There we go. All right, so that is my cucumber pretty much planted there. And of course, to finish the process, you do want to give your cucumbers a nice drink of water. The soil here was actually pre-moistened, so there's no need to for me to put too much of water in here. This is a vine, so this is actually going to grow and it's going to sprawl out, and as it sprawls out, I'm going to have it next to my trellis so that I can actually pin it up to the trellis so that it doesn't have to crawl on the ground. A trellis is basically a wire that can be of any material where you will have your cucumbers next to. So as the cucumber grows, you can use little clips that I'll show you how you can actually use those clips and let your cucumber grow up the trellis. By doing that, you're going to be growing vertically, which is something that's very popular in a lot of urban settings where we don't have a lot of space. So I can have a cucumber plant just 1 foot away from another cucumber plant and they won't interfere with one another, because if you can imagine it, they're growing up lines. All right, and pretty much pruning them is going to stop them from bushing out and, you know, becoming a mess together. So trellising, I'm going to be doing a video in the future showing you how to create your own trellis. You want to make sure that your soil is always nice and moist for your cucumbers. You don't want your cucumbers drying out on you. This could be really bad for your plant, but at the same time you don't want to overwater your cucumbers. So generally I find a good rule of thumb in our hot Trinidadian climate would be probably watering your cucumbers maybe once every 2 days, depending on how the weather is. If rain is falling and your cucumbers are getting wet with the rain, then don't water your cucumbers. All right, that's overkill, and too much of water can also cause root rot because there's just so much of moisture in that soil that the container doesn't have enough time to allow it to drain out. Okay, now when it comes to fertilizing your cucumbers, you want to be very, very diligent, because cucumbers need a lot of nitrogen to grow. Because it's a vine, you know, cucumber is something that will require a lot of leafy growth for it to really get up and coming. Okay, so if you haven't looked at my video on NPK and providing the right amount of nutrients in your soil, the right types of fertilizer, and how you can get nitrogen into your soil, have a look at the video that should pop up just right here. Long story short, worm castings, animal manure, leaf compost, these are all good sources of nitrogen. Blood meal as well, really good sources of nitrogen to really get your plant up and growing. Now your cucumbers, like all fruit and vegetables, require a good amount of sunlight, minimum 6 hours of sunlight. If you really can provide more, I actually think that you should go further to 8 hours to almost 10 hours of direct sunlight. Those cucumbers, their leaves act as solar panels for that energy, and if you want really nice fruit, you want to make sure that your cucumbers always have access to good sunlight. And sunlight also has other benefits, such as drying out your leaves after rain falls. Right now in Trinidad, we're in the wet season, so rain is falling, you know, intermittently between 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week. And all of that rain on the cucumbers can actually create an environment for certain bad fungi to actually form on the leaves, such as powdery white mildew. And having a good access to sunlight, which will dry out the leaves as soon as they get wet, and as soon as they get wet, the sun can come out and dry them out. Trellising will also help with that. That can help us to prevent powdery mildew, because powdery mildew, they really like having a moist surface to colonize. So when you make sure that the surface is dry, they are not going to be as prone to attacking your plants. Okay, so sunlight is very important. Remember, shooting for between 7 to maybe 10 hours of sunlight. If you can give them more, but no less than 6 hours. That's the absolute minimum. You really want to go between that 7, 8, 9, 10 hour spectrum for the sunlight for your cucumbers. And that's pretty much it, guys. It was super simple for these cucumbers in containers. You're gonna have them within 6 weeks if you follow my instructions. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a pleasure having you. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment box below and I'll be really happy to get back to you. Don't forget to follow the channel on Instagram at TheTriniGardener. Tag me when you get your nice harvest of cucumbers. This has been Dylan with the TRiniGardener channel, reminding you to get up and get growing. And there really is nothing as satisfying as coming out to your garden early in the morning and harvesting some fresh cucumber. Or one good thing about picking cucumber in the morning time is that it's still fresh with all of that natural water from the dew. Alright, so it's going to be a little more delicious and a lot more crunchy. There we go. So that's going to get a nice big one. These I should have harvested maybe a little bit younger, right? I just didn't get the time to harvest them just as yet. When they get too big, they tend to have a lot of seeds in them and they're not as delicious. it's still good, it's still gonna work. It's just that you have to maybe take out the seeds if you don't want to eat them, or you can eat the seeds. Okay. Up. This one like a little ball. Okay. Right. So there's a little one here coming up. That's a successful little cucumber. Right. There's another one, another one. I'm a big fan of trellising up the cucumbers. That way they're not running all over the ground, and they will last longer because it'll take the insects a lot longer time to steal your harvest.